My girlfriend said, "This is non-negotiable. He's been in my life longer than you. He stays or we're done." At our engagement dinner, I folded the contract, said understood, and walked out while both families watched. But her ex-roommate had already sent me everything. 3 days ago, my girlfriend looked me dead in the eye at our engagement dinner and told me that her ex-boyfriend staying in her life was non-negotiable, that he had been around longer than me, and if I didn't accept that, we were done. She slid a professionally bound contract across the table while both our families watched. So I called my lawyer. I'm 33 years old, work as a civil engineer here in Austin, been doing infrastructure projects for about 8 years now, mostly bridge work, road planning, and the occasional stormwater management system. I specialize in municipal infrastructure, which basically means I help the city figure out how to build things that don't fall apart. Good job, steady paycheck, nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and then some. Got a decent condo near downtown that I bought 3 years ago, drive a truck that's paid off, and I've been putting away money for a house. Before all this happened, I was thinking about upgrading to a place with a backyard, maybe getting a dog, building something permanent. I thought I knew the woman I was planning to marry. Turns out, I didn't know her at all, not even close. Let me back up and give you the full picture of how we got here. Because this didn't happen overnight. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. I met Brooke 2 years ago at a charity gala my company sponsored downtown. One of those events where you wear uncomfortable shoes and make small talk with people whose names you'll forget by morning. Brooke was there representing some nonprofit that did art education for underprivileged kids. She had this booth set up with student artwork, photographs of kids painting murals, the whole feel-good presentation. We ended up at the same table during dinner, and she made some joke about the rubber chicken they were serving that actually made me laugh out loud. That was rare for me at those things. I'm not exactly the life of the party. We talked for 2 hours straight, about everything. Her work with the kids, my projects around the city, what we wanted from life. She was smart, engaged, asked real questions instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. That's rare these days. Brooke was different from anyone I dated before. She had this energy about her, this drive that I found attractive. She worked as a brand consultant for lifestyle companies, helping them develop their visual identity and social media presence. Had a decent following on Instagram herself, around 85,000 followers, mostly posting about interior design, fashion, and what she called intentional living, the kind of content where everything looks perfectly curated and slightly unreal. I didn't really understand the influencer world. Still don't, honestly. But I respected that she'd built something from nothing. She grew up without much money in a small town in West Texas, the kind of place where opportunity doesn't knock unless you go find it. Put herself through college waiting tables and doing freelance photography on the side. That kind of drive is attractive to me. I'm a guy who appreciates people who work hard and make things happen, rather than waiting for opportunities to fall in their lap. Our first date was coffee at this place near Lady Bird Lake. Just talking for 3 hours until they were about to close and the barista started giving us looks. Then dinner the next week at this little Mexican place she loved in South Austin. This hole-in-the-wall with amazing tacos and a patio with string lights. Then hiking at Barton Creek on a Saturday morning, when it was still cool enough to actually enjoy being outside. Before I knew it, we were spending every weekend together. She fit into my life seamlessly, and I thought I fit into hers. She had this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. Asked questions about my work, remembered details I'd mentioned weeks earlier, seemed genuinely curious about the boring technical stuff I did for a living. Most women I'd dated before either glazed over when I talked about drainage calculations or made jokes about watching paint dry. Brooke actually wanted to hear about it, or at least she pretended to, which I guess amounts to the same thing when you're falling in love. We dated for about 18 months before I proposed. Those months were good. Really good, actually. We traveled together. Did a week in Colorado skiing, which was her first time on the slopes. She picked it up fast, only fell twice on the first day before she got the hang of it. A long weekend in New Orleans for her birthday, where we ate too much beignets and walked around the French Quarter until our feet hurt. She came to my family dinners in Dallas and fit right in with my parents and my brother's family. My mom loved her immediately, said she had good energy. I went to her work events and tried to understand what a brand activation was and why anyone would pay $50,000 for one. Still don't fully get it, but I showed up and smiled. We talked about the future constantly. Kids, where we'd live, what kind of house we wanted. She always said she wanted stability, someone she could build a life with, someone who wasn't going to flake when things got hard. She told me stories about growing up with parents who divorced and remarried multiple times, about the chaos of never knowing which house she'd be sleeping at or which step-sibling would be around. I told her I wanted the opposite of that. One partner, one life, building something together that would last. She cried when I said that, told me that's exactly what she wanted too. I believed her. Looking back, that was my mistake. But when someone looks you in the eye and tells you exactly what you want to hear, you want to believe them. You convince yourself that this time is different, that this person is real, that the connection is genuine. I thought I was that person for her. The stable guy who was going to give her the life she never had growing up. The foundation she could finally build on. The safe harbor after all those chaotic years with divorced parents and revolving door stepfamilies. The proposal itself was pretty straightforward. I'm not a flashy guy by nature. We were hiking at Enchanted Rock, this beautiful state park, about an hour outside Austin with these massive pink granite domes you can climb. Got to the summit right as the sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. I pulled out the ring I'd been hiding for 3 weeks. She cried, said yes immediately, and we drove back to town feeling like everything was finally falling into place. The ring cost me $8,000. Took me 6 months to save for it on top of my regular expenses. I picked it out myself after doing research on what she liked, what her friends said she wanted, what ring styles matched her other jewelry. I thought about every detail because that's who I am. When I commit to something, I commit fully. Her parents loved me from the start. At least that's what I thought. Her dad, Warren, is this retired attorney who specialized in family law for 30 years. Very polished, very professional, the kind of guy who wears blazers to casual dinners and has strong opinions about absolutely everything. He was always talking about progressive approaches to modern relationships, how traditional marriage structures were outdated, how families needed to evolve beyond nuclear models. Her mom, Diane, runs this lifestyle blog about what she calls evolved partnerships. Has maybe 40,000 subscribers who hang on her every word. Writes about non-traditional relationship structures and conscious communication frameworks. She's the type who uses words like intentional and authentic and container for growth in every sentence. Posts photos of her morning routines and her gratitude journals. I thought their approach was a little intense sometimes, but I figured that was just their thing. Every family has their quirks. My family argues about football and eats too much at Thanksgiving. Hers discusses emotional frameworks and reads self-help books together. Different strokes, right? Wrong. So wrong. The engagement dinner was Warren's idea. He wanted to gather both families at this upscale restaurant downtown, Jeffrey's, to celebrate and discuss wedding plans. Said it would be a good chance for everyone to get to know each other better and start coordinating schedules for the big day. I thought it was a nice gesture. My family isn't big on formal dinners, but I appreciated that he wanted to do things properly. 12 people total at a long table in the private dining room. My parents flew in from Dallas that morning. My brother Kevin and his wife Laura drove down from their place in Round Rock. Brooke's parents, her Aunt Carolyn, her cousin Megan. The whole crew assembled around a table with white linens and too many forks. Everything started out fine. Good food, comfortable conversation. My mom and Diane were talking about venues and whether outdoor ceremonies were worth the weather risk in Texas summer. My dad and Warren were discussing retirement planning and investment portfolios. Brooke was showing her cousin photos of dresses on her phone, swiping through options and getting feedback. Normal family stuff. I was feeling good. Grateful, actually. Here I was, surrounded by people I cared about, celebrating a future with a woman I loved. Life doesn't give you many moments like that. Then, about halfway through dinner, Brooke reaches into her bag. She pulls out this glossy packet. Professional binding, embossed cover, the whole 9 yards. Must have cost a couple $100 just to print and assemble. The title on the front reads Family of Choice Agreement in elegant script font. I'm thinking this is some kind of joke. Like maybe it's a gag gift about our different families coming together. Or maybe it's some kind of cute wedding planning document she designed. But everyone at the table goes quiet. Not confused quiet. Expectant quiet. Like they knew what was coming. And Brooke is looking at me with this dead serious expression. No smile. No warmth. Just focused intensity. I wanted to present this in a meaningful setting, she says. With everyone we love present. Because this is about our family. All of our family. I open it up, and I'm reading clauses about how her ex-boyfriend, Landon, needs to remain a permanent family member after we get married, how he's required to be invited to all holidays, birthdays, and major life events. There's a section designating him as a creative advisor for our wedding brand campaign. Our wedding brand campaign. I didn't even know we had one of those. The document goes on for 12 pages. Single-spaced. Detailed provisions about communication schedules between Brooke and Landon. Creative input rights for anything related to our public image. Something called emotional infrastructure maintenance that requires regular check-ins between all three of us. There's a clause about Landon being present for major life milestones, including, but not limited to anniversary celebrations, career achievements, and the births of any children we might have. There's a section about vacation coordination, making sure Landon has the opportunity to join us for at least 2 major trips per year. There's a whole page about social media posting guidelines, how Landon needs to be credited for any creative work related to our relationship content, how he has approval rights over photos that include him. I look up from the packet, and the whole restaurant feels like it's underwater. Sound is muffled. Time is moving slow. My parents look like they've seen a ghost. My mom's hand is frozen halfway to her glass. My dad is staring at his plate. Kevin and Laura are exchanging glances. But on the other side of the table, it's completely different. Warren is nodding approvingly. Diane is literally beaming. That's when Brooke delivers the line that ended everything. "This is non-negotiable," she says, looking me right in the eye without blinking. "Landon has been in my life longer than you have. He's been part of my creative journey since college. He stays, or we end this here." The whole table is silent. My mom has her hand over her mouth now. My dad is gripping his napkin so hard his knuckles are white. Kevin looks like he wants to stand up and say something but doesn't know what. I didn't say anything for about 30 seconds. Just sat there processing what had just happened. My fiancé had presented me with a legally formatted document at our engagement dinner, in front of both our families, requiring me to accept her ex-boyfriend as a permanent fixture in our marriage, in our home, around our future children. The ultimatum hung in the air. Landon stays, or we're done. I looked at the packet one more time, flipped through a few pages, noticed Landon's full legal name on multiple clauses, noticed Warren's name at the bottom of the final page as the document preparer, noticed everything about this had been planned, organized, executed with precision. Then I folded the packet, placed it next to my plate, and said one word: understood. I stood up, straightened my jacket, and thanked everyone for dinner. Told them I appreciated them taking the time to be here. Told my parents I would call them in the morning. Then I walked out. No yelling, no arguing, no scene, no begging her to reconsider, no asking for explanations. I just left. When someone hands you a contract about their ex-boyfriend being involved with your future children at an engagement dinner, they're not planning a marriage. They're planning a merger. And I don't do mergers. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept replaying the moment in my head, trying to figure out if I'd misunderstood something. Maybe there was context I was missing. Maybe this was some kind of elaborate test to see how I'd react. But no. She literally handed me a bound document requiring me to accept her ex as a permanent family member at our engagement dinner, in front of everyone who mattered to both of us. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a declaration. When I got back to my condo, I sat in my truck for another 10 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel. Then I pulled out my phone and took photos of every page of that packet. Front cover, back cover, every single page in between. Timestamp documentation. Then I forwarded everything to my friend Dana. She's a corporate attorney who specializes in contract law. We went to college together at Texas State, stayed friends ever since. She's one of those people who sees through nonsense immediately. No patience for games. Subject line: "You're going to want to read this." She called me back in 6 minutes flat. Her exact words: "What did I just read? We're documenting everything starting now. Don't delete anything. Don't respond to anyone." I spent that night going through our shared accounts, revoked Brooke's access to my credit card, removed her from the wedding registry, changed the passwords on all the utilities tied to my condo. Then I forwarded the entire packet to my parents with one line: "I'm done pretending she respects me." My dad called me at midnight, just said, "Proud of you, son, get some sleep." That was it. That was enough. But wait, it gets worse. The next morning I wake up to an email from Warren with the subject line: "Addendum to Prenup Draft." Inside is another legal document. This one is even more detailed than the first, and it lists Landon as a godparent advisor for all future family branding and child-raising decisions. Family branding. For kids we don't even have yet. Kids who don't exist. The addendum includes provisions about Landon having input on educational choices for future children, input on naming decisions, a requirement that he be present for first birthdays, first days of school, graduations, ongoing creative collaboration rights regarding any content featuring the children. I stared at that screen for about 10 minutes, trying to comprehend what I was reading. This wasn't just about maintaining a friendship with an ex. This was a detailed legal framework for inserting a third person into every aspect of my hypothetical family's life. Then I called Dana and told her I needed her help figuring this out. All I could say was, "This isn't love anymore. It's strategy." She told me to send her everything. She told me not to respond to anyone. She told me this was going to get worse before it got better. So let me ask you, am I completely insane here? Was walking out the right move? Because Brooke has been absolutely blowing up my phone saying I embarrassed her family and that I'm being controlling and regressive. She sent me 43 text messages in the first 12 hours. Started apologetic. "I'm sorry the timing was off. Can we talk about this calmly?" Then confused. "Why won't you respond? This isn't like you." Then angry. "You're being childish. We can work through this if you just communicate." Diane posted something on her blog titled, "When Partners Fear Your Freedom," about a controlling fiancé who couldn't handle evolved love. She didn't name me directly, but everyone who knows us would know exactly who she was talking about. She described a rigid, traditional man who ran away when presented with an opportunity for growth. Several friends sent me screenshots. Warren sent me a formal email requesting a reconciliation meeting to discuss how we could move forward as a family unit. He CC'd Diane and Brooke, like this was a business negotiation instead of the end of a relationship. I haven't responded to any of it because honestly, I don't even know what to say. I keep going back to that moment when she said, "Landon stays or we're done." Who gives their partner an ultimatum like that at an engagement dinner in front of both families with a printed contract? Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I thought marriage meant choosing each other first, not signing legal documents to preserve your relationship with your ex-boyfriend. What do you think? Did I handle this right? Or did I just throw away my life over nothing? Update 1. All right, everyone. Things have gotten significantly more complicated since my last post. Dana has been incredible through all this. She immediately started documenting everything because she said something felt off about the whole situation from a legal perspective. Turns out her instincts were dead on. So here's what we discovered after digging into the paper trail. Diane, Brooke's mom, is the sole signer on every single wedding vendor contract. Every single one. The venue at this converted warehouse space that costs $18,000 just to rent. The catering company that specializes in farm-to-table cuisine, the florist, the string quartet, the custom lighting designer, the DJ for the reception, everything. Total value across all contracts, $145,000. None of it was in my name. None of it required my approval. None of it was even discussed with me beyond Brooke asking what colors I liked and whether I preferred chicken or fish. And get this. Landon's photography company has already been paid $80,500 for creative direction on our wedding visuals. Our wedding that we haven't even had yet. His company invoiced for services including brand narrative development, visual identity consultation, couple positioning strategy, and something called legacy documentation framework. I didn't even know what half those things meant until Dana explained them to me. They were treating our wedding like a product launch. The good news is I have zero legal liability for any of it. Every contract ties back to Diane as the responsible party. Dana said it's like they were planning a business event, not a wedding. The structure was designed to make me feel obligated and invested without actually making me legally responsible. Then there's the credit card situation. Remember how I revoked Brooke's access to my card? Well, Dana had me pull the complete statements first. $60,200 in charges over the past 4 months that violated our written agreement about wedding expenses. Our deal was simple. We'd made it in writing, actually texted back and forth about it so there was documentation. Joint wedding expenses would be discussed and approved by both of us before any charges over $500. She had a supplementary card on my account specifically for that purpose. Instead, I found charges for spa weekends at fancy resorts in Sedona and Big Sur. $3,000 here, $4,000 there. Designer dress rentals from boutiques in LA and Dallas. Something called a wedding mood board studio session that Landon billed directly to my card for $4,200. She'd been using my credit to fund her content creation. The spa trips were for Instagram posts about pre-wedding self-care journeys. The dress rentals were for try-on videos her followers apparently loved. The mood board session was literally a photo shoot where Landon photographed her surrounded by wedding inspiration images. None of this was for our wedding. It was for her content, funded by my credit card. I disputed all the charges with the bank, and they froze the card pending investigation. Brooke was not happy about that. Her text went from apologetic to furious pretty quickly. "You're ruining my business," she wrote at 2 in the morning. "My sponsors need consistent content. This is how I make money. Do you not understand that?" I didn't respond. But here's where it gets really interesting. Diane published that blog post I mentioned, the one about partners who fear freedom. It was clearly about me, describing a rigid traditional man who couldn't handle his fiance's expansive approach to love and connection. The post talked about how some people are too wounded by patriarchal conditioning to embrace authentic relating. The comments section was brutal. Dozens of her followers calling me controlling, insecure, afraid of strong women. One person actually wrote that I probably had narcissistic personality disorder, and Brooke was lucky to have escaped. Escaped. From me. The guy who just got ambushed with a contract about his ex at an engagement dinner. The next day, my company's HR department received an anonymous email questioning my emotional stability. The email suggested I was going through a mental health crisis and might pose a risk to colleagues. It recommended they monitor my behavior closely and consider whether I should be working on critical infrastructure projects that affect public safety. Someone actually tried to sabotage my career because I wouldn't sign their contract. Fortunately, my friend Javier works in our IT department. He heads up cybersecurity and was part of the team that investigated the anonymous complaint. He forwarded me a copy of the email and told me HR was taking it seriously because of the safety angle. More importantly, he traced the IP address back to Diane's home office. She literally tried to end my career because I wouldn't accept her daughter's ex-boyfriend into my marriage. I submitted everything to HR immediately. The ultimatum document, the prenup addendum, screenshots of the blog post, the complete timeline. They investigated for 3 days, interviewed me once, reviewed all the materials, and ultimately dismissed the complaint as clearly malicious. My supervisor pulled me aside after it was resolved and told me to take whatever time I needed. He said the anonymous complaint was obviously intended to cause harm and wouldn't affect my standing. Good people have your back when it matters. Then something unexpected happened. This woman named Kelsey reached out to me privately through Instagram. She was Brooke's roommate in college at UT Austin. She still does styling work for Brooke occasionally. She'd been at the engagement dinner, actually, sitting at the far end of the table looking uncomfortable the whole time. I'd noticed her, but didn't think much of it. Kelsey sent me a message that just said, "I need to show you something. Can we meet somewhere private?" We met at a coffee shop across town. She was nervous, kept looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to walk in and catch her. Then she handed me her phone. Text message screenshots. Between Brooke, Diane, and Landon. From the week before our dinner. 4. They were literally planning to stage that ultimatum conversation. The whole thing was rehearsed. They'd discussed how to frame it, what words to use, how to position the packet for maximum impact, when to slide it across the table, what expressions to have on their faces. One message from Diane read, "If he backs out after this, we can position him as regressive and controlling. His walkout becomes our proof that traditional men can't handle evolved love. Either way, we win. The narrative works in our favor." Another from Landon said, "The key is making him feel like he's the one being unreasonable. Traditional men hate looking closed-minded in public. Social pressure will push him to comply." And from Brooke, "He'll sign. He's too invested to walk away now. He spent $8,000 on the ring. He's not throwing that away over some paperwork." She genuinely believed I was too committed to leave, that the money I'd spent would trap me into compliance. She miscalculated. Dana's response when I showed her the screenshots. "Perfect. That's premeditation. They planned this deliberately to manipulate you. Keep this sealed until we need it." I realized something sitting there reading those messages. I wasn't Brooke's fiancé. I was their target demographic. The stable, successful, traditional guy who would give their narrative legitimacy. They needed someone like me to make their concept seem mainstream and acceptable. Without me, they were just people with weird ideas about relationships. With me on board, reluctantly accepting their progressive framework, they were pioneers challenging outdated norms. The most recent development is that Diane is threatening to sue me for emotional distress over my public walkout from the restaurant. Dana just laughed when I told her. Her exact words, "Let her try. She's already made your defense airtight with that blog post and the HR sabotage attempt." My parents have been amazing through this. My dad just told me, "Son, you dodged a bullet. Don't look back." My mom keeps asking if I'm eating enough. Normal family support. I'll keep you posted. Apparently this isn't over yet. Update 2. I cannot believe I'm back here again, but this situation just keeps escalating in ways I never could have predicted. Thank you to everyone who's been following along and offering support. Warren arranged what he called a neutral family meeting at a community center downtown. Both families attended. Dana came as my advocate since Brooke's side was clearly operating as a unit. I figured this would be where we worked out a peaceful separation and moved on with our lives. I was so wrong. The meeting started civil enough. Everyone sat on opposite sides of a long conference table. Coffee and water on the table. Warren did most of the talking for their side, laying out what he called the path forward. He spoke in that measured attorney voice, like he was presenting to a judge instead of talking to the father of the man his daughter had just ambushed. Then Brooke opened by offering what she called a compromise. Landon could step back from family holidays. He wouldn't come to Christmas or Thanksgiving, but he needed to retain creative authority over her public image as what she called a family brand. He would still have input on any content related to our relationship. He would still be consulted on major life decisions that affected the brand. He would still be present for milestone documentation. She said this like it was a generous concession, like she was doing me a favor by only letting her ex control how our hypothetical family was presented to the world. "This is me meeting you halfway," she said. "This is me compromising for us." I had prepared for this meeting. Dana helped me put together a presentation with all the evidence we'd gathered, and I brought a projector. When Brooke finished her compromise speech, I asked if I could share some information with everyone. Warren looked annoyed but agreed. Probably thought I was going to present some kind of emotional appeal. Instead, I showed everyone the text messages Kelsey had given me, the ones proving they planned the whole dinner stunt in advance. I put them on the screen, one after another, with timestamps showing the coordination. The message about positioning me as regressive. The message about social pressure pushing me to comply. The message about me being too invested to walk away. The room went very quiet. Then I showed them the invoices proving Landon's company had been paid $80,500 from wedding funds for services that hadn't been rendered yet. I showed them the detailed breakdown of what those services supposedly included. Brand narrative development, couple positioning strategy, legacy documentation framework. Services for a wedding that would never happen. Then I showed them my bank statements proving misuse of my credit card. $60,000 in charges for spa trips and photo shoots and studio sessions, none of which were for our actual wedding. Then I showed them the prenup addendum listing Landon as a godparent advisor for future children. Warren's composure completely broke. This calm, polished attorney started raising his voice. He said the family would not tolerate defamation, that I was twisting innocent documents, that I was proving exactly why I wasn't evolved enough to be part of their family, that my presentation was a violation of trust and good faith. Dana leaned forward and said very quietly, "Defamation requires falsehood. We have receipts. Every document I've shown is authenticated. Every screenshot is timestamped. Every invoice has a paper trail. If you'd like to dispute any of this on the record, I'd be happy to schedule a deposition." Warren stopped talking. That's when Diane started crying. She went into a speech about how they just wanted to create a new model for modern love, how I was destroying something beautiful, because I was threatened by their emotional evolution. My mom finally spoke up. "Your daughter asked my son to sign a contract letting another man help raise his children," she said, "at his engagement dinner, in front of everyone. And you think he's the problem?" Nobody had a response for that. The meeting ended with no resolution. Both families left angry. My parents hugged me in the parking lot. My dad said, "You're doing the right thing. Stay the course." But here's where this story takes a turn I never saw coming. Kelsey reached out again a few days later with something that changed everything. She'd found a pitch deck on Landon's computer. He'd left his laptop open at Brooke's apartment, and Kelsey saw the document sitting right there on his desktop. Big, bold title, professional formatting. The file was called The Modern Family Brand, Turning Love into Legacy. This was a complete business plan for monetizing my marriage to Brooke. The pitch deck laid out projected revenue streams from lifestyle sponsorships, brands that would pay to be associated with their evolved family model, weekend retreats teaching couples how to embrace expanded family structures, corporate workshops on non-traditional partnership frameworks. There was a section about a book deal Diane was shopping to publishers. Working title, Chosen Family, A Mother's Guide to Evolved Love. My wedding to Brooke was going to be the centerpiece case study. There were projections for a podcast network, 3 different shows planned, one hosted by Brooke, one hosted by Diane, one hosted by Landon, even a section about merchandising, clothing lines, home goods, a subscription box. One slide actually said, target demographic, men aged 30 to 45 who value stability but feel constrained by traditional relationship models. Our male anchor provides aspirational representation for this demographic. Male anchor, that's what I was to them. They had projected revenues mapped out for 5 years. Year 1, $340,000. Year 2, $750,000. Year 5, $2.1 million annually. My marriage was supposed to generate $2.1 million a year for them. I was never her fiancé. I was their target demographic, their male anchor. Their case study. Dana reviewed the pitch deck and told me I had two options. Option 1. Expose this publicly and create a viral scandal that destroys their careers. Option 2. Stay quiet, finish the bank dispute, and let them collapse under their own contradictions. I chose silence. As tempting as public revenge was, I told Dana, let the truth rot them from the inside. I just need to be free. The consequences started rolling in. Brooke lost 2 major brand partnerships after she couldn't deliver content during the credit card investigation period. Her sponsor relations manager got concerned about brand safety issues. Landon's photography studio lost 3 major clients after screenshots of his co-parent brand pitch somehow made their way to potential customers. Don't know how that happened. Someone must have been careless with documents. Diane shut down her blog for what she called a personal break after receiving multiple complaints about mixing personal family drama with advice content. 3 weeks after our family meeting, Warren sent me a draft lawsuit through his personal attorney. The claims: public humiliation and breach of emotional contract. Yes, emotional contract. Apparently, that's something they think exists. Dana's response was to file a cease and desist, along with an anti-slap counter warning for attempted defamation. She delivered a complete chronological timeline of events to Warren's attorney: the dinner stunt, the blog post, the credit card misuse, the HR sabotage attempt, the business pitch deck, everything documented with timestamps. Dana's message to me that night: don't blink. The end game is ours. I've started sleeping better, bought some plants for my condo, started hiking on weekends again. Amazing how much energy you get back when you stop pretending someone respects you. More updates to come. Final update. Well, everyone, this is probably my last update. Thank you to everyone who followed along. The mediation process was brutal. 3 hours in a sterile conference room with both families, 2 attorneys, and a court-appointed mediator. Warren tried to paint me as an unstable partner who couldn't handle evolved love concepts. Diane talked about how their family had been traumatized by my public rejection. Then Dana presented the business pitch deck on the conference room screen. The room went dead silent. You could actually watch Warren realize his daughter had been planning to monetize her marriage. His face went through about 6 different emotions in 30 seconds. Confusion, recognition, anger, shame, calculation, defeat. Diane stopped talking about emotional evolution and started talking about misunderstandings. The mediator asked Brooke directly, "Did you intend to build a business around your marriage without your partner's knowledge or consent?" She didn't answer, just looked at Landon like she expected him to rescue her. He sat there looking at his hands. Not a word. My mom, who had been quiet the entire mediation, finally spoke up. "You people plan to turn my son's wedding into a brand deal," she said, her voice steady and cold. "And you have the audacity to claim emotional distress?" The mediator called a 15-minute break after that. The settlement took 2 weeks to finalize. I agreed to drop my credit card dispute on 2 borderline charges worth about $2,400. In exchange, Diane and Warren accepted full financial liability for all wedding contracts, binding non-disparagement clause, preventing any of them from discussing me publicly. Ever. Brooke signed a no-contact agreement, 5 years. Legally enforceable. Landon signed a cease and desist, preventing him from using my name or likeness in any business materials, including that pitch deck. Everything sealed. Everything irreversible. Now here's what happened to each of them. Brooke tried to rebrand as a relationship coach on Instagram, posted about healing after heartbreak and finding yourself after loss. Lost most of her major sponsors within 2 months. Her book deal fell through after the publisher got wind of the controversy and decided the risk wasn't worth the advance. Last week, I heard through mutual friends that she's back living with her parents while she reassesses her brand strategy. Her follower count dropped from 85,000 to 31,000 in 4 months. Engagement is basically dead. Comments are sparse. The algorithm stopped pushing her content. Diane's blog got hit with an ethics complaint from her professional association. Someone reported that she was mixing personal family promotion with advice content and potentially exploiting relationships for content. She shut down the blog permanently. Then last month, I found out she lost her certification renewal. She's not practicing anymore. Her evolved partnerships philosophy didn't survive contact with actual scrutiny. Warren tried to file that lawsuit for emotional distress. Dana counterfiled with everything we had: the HR sabotage attempt, the premeditated text messages, the business pitch deck, all of it in one fat binder delivered to his attorney's office. 3 weeks later, his own attorney dropped him as a client. Apparently, even other lawyers thought his case was embarrassing. He's been telling people the whole thing was a social experiment gone wrong. Nobody's buying it. His colleagues at the Bar Association have been notably distant at events. Landon relocated to Denver. His photography business took a hit, but he's rebuilding. That part bothers me. But then, 2 months ago, Kelsey sent me a screenshot. His new girlfriend found out about the pitch deck. Someone had forwarded it to her. She posted about it on her own social media, tagged him, called him a relationship grifter who tried to monetize another man's marriage. That post got 12,000 shares. His Denver rebrand isn't going as smoothly as he'd hoped. As for me, my company promoted me to senior project lead 3 months after the mediation concluded. The affordable housing development I've been working on broke ground last month. 200 units of sustainable mixed-income housing. My name's on the project plaque. Real work, real impact. Something that actually helps people instead of farming their lives for content. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.